A software framework is a set of classes, functionalities, and design principles that come together to provide the standard way of developing and deploying applications. Here's an example analogy to get the idea. Let's say we're baking Christmas cookies. We're making star cookies. And so you start cutting out your first cookie by hand, but you realize you're not efficient enough so that you could produce enough cookies to also give away cookies to your friends and family. So you start developing an aluminum frame which you can use to produce the same kind of cookie shape again and again. This is the same principle in the software development world. If you have a software of the same type, you can use a framework that gives you predefined functionalities, classes, and principles that are always going to be the same, like the shape of the cookie in this case. And then you can add special functionality in your programs, like you would add maybe special coding on individual cookies. So really the main purpose of frameworks is code reuse. But wait a minute, we have libraries for that, right? Well, frameworks provide a greater level of reuse by providing a domain-specific design and architecture as well. For example, the model view controller architecture in web apps. Then they also specify the control flow. And execution always starts within the framework. So that's what we call inversion of control. We'll see what that actually means in an example later on. There are two types of frameworks. There's white box and black box. The difference between the two lies in the ways on how we extend and build on the framework. In white box we do it with inheritance, and in black box frameworks it's done with composition and delegation. So here's the example. Let's assume we want to simplify and standardize how we print something in a dialog box. So we're going to extend through inheritance with the white box approach. That means we're going to create an abstract class print-to-screen, which basically represents our whole framework here. It specifies the print method, which encapsulates all that magic that does the printing to the dialog box. And then we have an abstract method, text-to-show, which has to be implemented by all inheriting classes. And this basically represents the hotspot or the hook method where users of our framework can plug in and specify their individual functionality. Or in this case, the functionality is just the individual text you want to display in the dialog box. So here's the code. This is the abstract class print on screen, which basically represents our whole framework. It specifies the print method. So we're just using swing here and then the show message dialog in the frame plus that text to show, which has to be implemented by the user of our framework. And really that's all that it does. Then to use the framework, we're creating a class myTextToShow, which extends the print on screen class. And then we override that abstract class. So the text to show, we just return, we print this text, blah, 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 with the white box framework. And then to run it, we simply have to instantiate a myTextToShow class and then use the print method. And that works. Perfect. Notice that we're using here the print method, which lives inside of the framework. So the execution happens within the framework. This is a key point of frameworks, and this is what we call inversion of control. Now we are going to do the same thing, but with the black box approach. So instead of using inheritance, we're going to use composition and delegation to extend upon the framework. The new design looks like that. So we're going to have an interface text to show, which is going to be implemented by the extension point we define ourselves. So that's really what a user of our framework implements, the myTextToShow class. And that myTextToShow class is then passed inside of the main framework class, the print-to-screen class. And then we use that print method, which will use the myTextToShow details. But let's look at the code to understand this better. This is the interface, straightforward, just an empty text method that has to be implemented. Then we have the main framework class print_on_screen, which takes in a text to show class. It assigns it with the constructor, and then the print method works the same way, but now instead of calling the same text to show method that was hosted inside of the print_on_screen class, we now have to use delegation and call the text to show class and use the text method from there, which is basically doing the same thing as you will see now. So this is our main extension point here. This is what the user defines, my text to show, and again we do the same thing. We just say print this text, but now using the black box framework. Okay, and then to run it, we create a new print_on_screen framework class, and then we also have to create a new myTextToShow class, which we pass into our framework. And then of course we just call the print function. And that also works.